Hi, this is Frank Cabri, and welcome to another Centrify Chalk Talk. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Centrify, and of course the Chalk Talks are our informal way we get together and share news and information around specific topics around identity management and a little bit about how Centrify helps solve some of those problems. I'm joined here today by David McNeely, our Director of Product Management. Welcome, David.
Thanks.
Today we're going to focus primarily on direct manage. So this is a set of capabilities that help administrators understand their environment, manage their environment, new product from Centrify. And before I get too much into it, I'll turn it over to David. And David, maybe you can tell us a little about direct manage and what capabilities are part of that suite.
Great, thanks. Direct Manage is a collection of administrative tools. We've had some of these components over the life of some of our products, Direct Control, Direct Authorize, Direct Audit. But what we wanted to do is to put them under one brand and make it easier for people to understand the various components. There's a lot of different pieces to help customers fit in the management of Unix systems into their Active Directory environments based on how they manage their Active Directory infrastructures.
Okay, so it's a collection of some existing capabilities as well as some,
that's right.
some new...
And we're adding some new capabilities to the solution set. Centered around deployment, helping you to manage and push out software, deploy the product, as well as some automation tools to help with automating some of the management.
Okay. What's driving some of these management capabilities on the part of the customer environment?
Well, one of the things we find is just trying to simplify and make it easier for customers to adopt the technology. A lot of times it's kind of difficult to push out software. Unix machines are typically managed by hand, and so some of the organizations we run into do have some tools to help automate the pushing out of software, analysis of the machine, doing updates, upgrades, that kind of thing. But in many cases, that's done by an administrator one machine at a time. Because sometimes there's not that many machines and it's just not too difficult. But we find that in integrating a machine into Active Directory, there's a lot of things that need to be done with respect to checking the system, making sure that it has the right notion of time. It can find the Active Directory domain controllers via DNS. And some of those things are really difficult to do over the wire and check, time specifically. And it would be easier if we provided a tool that helped you with that process. And not to mention, downloading software and figuring out, this is Solaris 10, therefore it needs a particular package. And here's some specific checks for the Solaris platform. A lot of these tools we had built to be run command line. We're just automating that, centralizing it into one place to make it easy for you to run reports and see what, how systems are integrated into your environment.
So I know one of the new pieces is what we call Deployment Manager. Maybe we can drill down into that a little bit. It's one of the new capabilities. What prompted that, and what are some of the capabilities there?
So I'll go back to one of our early customers that had some deadlines. Some financial services customers that were looking to meet some compliance requirements by the end of a specific period of time. They had been audited, found a few problems, and our solution was the answer to those problems, but we had a very finite amount of time to get deployed. And essentially within 1 month we needed to deploy the software across several hundred systems and make sure that they were able to prove compliance. If we had to go around and touch every single machine by hand, that was just going to take, there's this amount of time that's required to talk to each machine and manage the update on the system. But so what we did was our consultants built some tools to help automate. Since there's using SSH protocols and we know the user ID passwords to go talk to all the machines, we're able to construct some scripts and build some automation around going out and talking to each machine, retrieving what is your name, your configuration.
I see. Just inventorying my entire environment. Yeah.
Right. And once you have a list of which particular operating systems you have deployed, then you can very easily go back and say, well, I need to go make sure I get this Centrify product, put it on the machine, have it join the system to Active Directory, and help with migrating accounts. So the tools that we built, or we try to productize this, make it easier for our customers to use it in addition to just our consultants. We've been using this kind of capability for the last couple of years in the consulting organization. But now we're productizing it, putting a wizard in front of it, streamlining the interface, making it easy for customers to be able to discover the systems in their environment, scanning IP addresses, doing some analysis on the machine to figure out what OS versions, what patch levels, make sure it understands DNS in time. And once we have a machine that looks like it's good enough that we can deploy software to, we'll be able to push the correct Centrify package out and force the machine to join Active Directory.
So it's cataloging all the systems in my network. It's determining its readiness to join Active Directory and then ultimately being able to push Centrify software automatically down to that device, the appropriate package based on the appropriate operating system, obviously.
Right.
So what else is new?
We've uncovered in talking to a lot of customers is that their method of managing a lot of systems, and let's say when a user requests access to any other typical Windows-centric resource, is to put that user into a group. And it'd be a whole lot easier if we could enable them to use that same management methodology to grant access to a Unix resource, whether that be terminal access to a Unix Linux system or file system access to the Samba shares that are on the box. Using groups tends to be a little bit more natural to that organization as far as the method of management. So we built some automation tools to help us automate management of putting a user from a master zone, if you will, which we use to hold Unix identity data, and provision that user for access to a resource zone where the user would be able to gain access to the computers that are in that particular zone. So we have this tool called Zone Provisioning Agent that's designed to basically look for, you configure it to support using an Active Directory group as the control mechanism to basically populate users into a destination zone for access to resources in that zone.
Zones are something we create in the Active Directory environment, right? Around computers and users, okay.
Right, we've created this idea of zones as a way to limit to users' access. So instead of having a Unix system see all the users across the entire Active Directory infrastructure, have the Unix system basically understand the user accounts that are only in that zone. So if the user doesn't have a profile in that zone, he can't access the computer. But the challenge in the past was that adding a user to a zone had to be done either by hand or you had to programmatically create your own scripts, your own automation system for that. So we run across a lot of customers that either already have this process in place for managing via groups or have a provisioning tool in-house and would like to integrate into that provisioning tool. And this actually makes it really easy because most provisioning tools understand how to manage group memberships within Active Directory as a way to deny access to Active Directory or Windows-centric resources. And so again, if the provisioning system enables someone to request membership of an Active Directory group, that group can then be used as a way to grant a user access to Unix systems in order to provision their profiles.
Is it worth maybe a quick picture on how that works in a actual network environment? Okay, great.
Zone provisioning is designed to make it easier. So normally what will happen is somebody will create an Active Directory group, and I'll just put some users into this to start with, a few. And zone provisioning is designed to say members of this group, and this, just call this end users, or maybe a finance group, or maybe sysadmins. And zone provisioning agent is a daemon that's running on a Windows machine that's been configured to populate people into this zone down here. And this zone has a Unix computers as members, and it may have multiple. And the idea being, if people are put into this particular group, the zone provisioning has a rule set that says take members of this group and put them into this zone down here. And there is some ability to manipulate what their UID is. It'll copy it if it already exists up here, or it can create it from scratch if necessary, and put the users down here. So the end result is I end up with my little stick figure people here having profiles created in the zone, so therefore they gain access. Now this thing will periodically check, and there's an interval that's set to go back and double check the set of users that are in this group and who's configured in the zone. If I go back and I put another person in this Active Directory group because a help desk requested access to this system, it runs and it goes and creates a user down in this profile in this zone. So that grants that user the right to log into that system.
And that interval is a configurable thing? Or
it's a configurable interval, but normally you'll leave it set to like once every 60 minutes or something like that. If I take a user out, then it deletes the user out of that zone. I could also, in order to support the typical ad hoc administration, manually a person could go back and put yet another profile into this zone. It won't mess with that user because it knows that particular user was manually provisioned. And it'll just let him stay there. So there's a lot of different, and there's a lot of different configurations for this. But the biggest advantage is that I enable Active Directory group up here to drive who gets a profile into this particular zone. Because imagine if you had 10 or 100 of these zones, how would you manage, putting people into the zones to grant access?
Right, so rather than doing all that manually, you can just extend your existing groups.
So the end result is that zone provisioning is designed to just simply make it easier to use Active Directory groups as a way to manage who has rights to gain access to a system within a zone.
So that wraps up this Chalk Talk on Direct Manage, again alongside David McNeely, and thank you, David, for joining us. I'm Frank Cabri. Please join us again soon. Thanks.